The Silent Blade, a tale of hidden power and shattered pride. The morning air at the Fort Bragg training facility in North Carolina, August 2023, was thick with the kind of heat that clings to your skin like damp cloth. The gravel crunched under heavy boots, and the shouts of cocky recruits echoed like gunfire across the parade ground. In the middle of it all, a small figure in faded jeans and a threadbare jacket stepped out of a rusted Chevy truck that looked like it had been dragged through every dirt road in the South. Her name was Sarah Kane, and she didn't belong her at least. That's what everyone thought. Her sneakers were so worn the soles flapped, her backpack held together by a single frayed strap, and her plain brown hair was pulled back in a messy knot. She looked like she'd wandered in from a thrift store, not the elite proving ground for the U.S. Army's toughest candidates. The other recruits, all polished egos and crisp uniforms, didn't miss a beat. "Yo, wrong turn at the soup kitchen," called out Ethan Caldwell, a broad-shouldered hotshot with a grin that screamed he'd never lost a fight. The crowd snickered, their laughter sharp as broken glass. Sarah didn't flinch. She just hoisted her bag and moved toward the barracks with the quiet precision of someone who'd been pushed around before and knew how to keep standing. But in exactly 16 minutes, when her tattered shirt ripped open under the weight of a brutal challenge, every smug face in that yard would go pale. A symbol dark, coiled, and impossible would silence their jeers and rewrite their entire world. This wasn't just a story about a woman proving herself. This was about a blade hidden in plain sight, ready to cut through every assumption they'd ever made. Sarah's arrival didn't just turn heads, it turned stomachs. To the likes of Chloe Harper, a sharp-tongued recruit with a perfect ponytail and a smirk that could curdle milk, Sarah was a walking insult. "Who let the janitor in?" Chloe tossed out, loud enough for the whole yard to hear, her manicured nails flicking towards Sarah's scuffed boots. The group roared, feeding off her cruelty like sharks circling blood. Sarah said nothing, her brown eyes steady as she walked past, her silence only making them laugh harder. But there was something in the way she moved, too calm, too deliberate, that made the air feel heavier, like the quiet before a storm. The first day at Fort Bragg was a meat grinder, designed to break the weak and polish the strong. Major Nathan Cole, the head instructor, was a towering figure with a voice that could shake the earth and shoulders that looked like they'd been chiseled from stone. He paced the yard, his eyes slicing through the recruits like a hawk picking out prey. "You," he barked, jabbing a finger at Sarah. "What's your deal? Maintenance crew get lost." The group snickered again, Chloe whispering loudly to the recruit beside her. "Bet she's here to check a box diversity quota, right?" Sarah met Cole's gaze, her face as still as a frozen lake. "I'm a recruit, sir," she said simply. Cole snorted, waving her off. "Get in line, then. Don't drag us down." That evening, the mess hall was a battlefield of bravado. Recruits swapped stories of their high school glory days, their voices climbing over each other like kids fighting for the spotlight. Sarah took her tray to a corner table, away from the noise. That's when Ryan Patel, lean and loud with a buzz cut that screamed attitude, decided to make her his entertainment. He sauntered over, slamming his tray down hard enough to make heads turn. "Yo, lost girl," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "This ain't a homeless shelter. Sure you're not here to scrub plates?" The crowd howled. Sarah paused, her fork halfway to her mouth, and looked at him with eyes that didn't waver. "I'm eating," she said, her voice flat. Ryan leaned in, smirking. "Eat faster, then. You're taking up space real soldiers need." With a flick of his wrist, he knocked her tray, sending peas and gravy splattering across her shirt. Phones came out, capturing the moment for their social media feeds. But Sarah just grabbed a napkin, wiped the mess with slow, careful movements, and took another bite, like Ryan wasn't even there. Her calm seemed to burn him more than any comeback could. The next morning's physical training was brutal push-ups until arms trembled, sprints that seared lungs, burpees in the red Carolina dirt under a relentless sun. Sarah kept pace, her breathing steady, but her frayed shoelaces kept slipping. During a sprint, Ethan jogged up beside her, his voice dripping with mockery. "Yo, Goodwill, your shoes quitting, or just you?" The laughter rippled through the group. Sarah didn't answer. She knelt, retied her laces with quick, precise fingers, and stood just as Ethan accidentally bumped her shoulder, sending her stumbling into the mud. Her hands sank into the wet earth, and the group roared. What's that, Kane? Ethan called, fake concern lacing his words. Auditioning for janitor or just our punching bag? Sarah rose, wiped her muddy palms on her pants, and kept running, her face a mask. If the humiliation stung, she didn't let it show. During a break, Chloe sauntered over with two other recruits, her arms crossed, her voice sweet with fake pity. Sarah, right? Where you even from? Win a raffle to be here. Her friends giggled, one hiding her laughter behind her hand. Sarah took a bite of her granola bar, chewed slowly, and looked up. I applied, she said, her tone as plain as the dirt under her feet. Chloe's smile tightened. Okay, but why? You don't exactly scream, elite soldier. I mean, look at your everything. She waved a hand at Sarah's muddy shirt and plain hair. Sarah set her granola bar down and leaned forward just enough to make Chloe flinch. I'm here to train, she said quietly. Not to make you feel better about yourself. Chloe's face reddened, and she muttered, whatever, freak, before storming off. The navigation drill that afternoon was a beast crossing a swampy forest with only a map and compass under a ticking clock. Sarah moved alone, her steps silent on the pine needles, her compass steady. A group led by Tyler and Gwen, a wiry recruit desperate to outshine Ethan, spotted her checking her map under a gnarled oak. Hey, Dora the Explorer, Tyler called, his voice slicing through the humid air. Lost already? Or just picking flowers? His group laughed, closing in like hyenas. Sarah folded her map with deliberate care and kept walking. Tyler, craving the spotlight, jogged up and snatched the map, tearing it in half and tossing the pieces into the wind. Let's see you navigate now, he said, grinning. Sarah watched the scraps flutter away, then looked at him, her face blank. Hope you know your way back, she said, and kept moving, her pace unchanged, like the map was just a minor annoyance. Tyler's laugh faltered, but his group kept jeering, their voices fading into the trees. Sarah stored her gear in a reinforced locker, including an encrypted sat phone with military-grade tech and a ruggedized tablet built to survive conditions that would shatter civilian devices. The rifle disassembly drill came next, a 2-minute race to strip, clean, and reassemble an M4 carbine. Most recruits fumbled, cursing as pins slipped from sweaty fingers. Ethan finished in a sloppy 147, grinning like he'd won a medal. Chloe scraped by at 159, her hands shaking. Then Sarah stepped up. Her hands moved like they were wired to a metronome epping out, bolt-free, parts laid out in a perfect grid. 50 seconds flat. Not a single misstep. Sergeant Malone, the grizzled instructor, stared at the timer, then at Sarah, then back at the timer like it was lying. Kane, he said, his voice low. Where'd you learn that? Sarah wiped her hands on her pants and stepped back. Practice, she said, eyes on the ground. A slow-motion replay on the training screen showed her flawless precision, every move surgical. A lieutenant nearby whispered to Malone. Her hands didn't shake once. That's Spec Ops steady. Ethan overheard and scoffed. So she can clean a gun. Doesn't mean she can fight. During a break, a quiet recruit named Mia Torres slipped Sarah a spare map from her own kit. You'll need this, Mia whispered, glancing around to ensure no one saw. Sarah took it, nodded once, and tucked it away without a word. It was the first kindness she'd received, and though her face stayed blank, something flickered in her eyes. Whispers spread after the rifle drill. Recruits started glancing at Sarah during breaks, trying to crack the puzzle of this woman who dressed like a drifter but handled weapons like a pro. She didn't seem to care, sitting on the grass, readying her laces with slow, deliberate motions. The equipment shed was another stage for humiliation. The quartermaster, a gruff man named Baxter, handed out gear with open disdain. When Sarah stepped up, he sneered. What's this, a thrift store convention? We don't got gear for civilians, sweetheart. He tossed her a tactical vest 2 sizes too big, the straps dangling uselessly. The line behind her snickered. Maybe she can use it as a tent, one called. Sarah caught the vest, her fingers tightening briefly, then slung it over her shoulder and walked out. Outside, away from eyes, she adjusted the vest with quick, practiced knots, making it fit like it was tailored. Her hands moved with the same precision as with the rifle, like gear modification was as natural as breathing. The terrain run the next morning was a beast 10 miles over rocky ground. Full gear, no mercy. Sarah stayed mid-pack, her breathing even, her steps steady despite the brutal pace. Chloe, right behind her, muttered, "Pick it up, charity case. You're slowing us down." At the halfway mark, as exhaustion cracked faces and form crumbled, Chloe made her move. She nudged Sarah's elbow, just enough to throw her off balance. Sarah's foot caught a rock, and she veered off the path, her ankle twisting as she hit the ground. Major Cole saw it. "Kane," he roared. "Broke formation. Squad loses points." The group groaned, shooting her dirty looks. Ethan turned, his face red with sweat and anger. "Nice one, Kane. Real team player." Sarah didn't explain. She got back in line, her jaw tight, her limp barely noticeable. Cole pointed at her. 5 extra laps. Move." The others smirked as Sarah ran, her breath now short, her face slick with sweat. When she finished, no one offered water. Chloe tossed an empty bottle at her feet. "Hydrate with air," she said, laughing. Sarah picked it up, crushed it slowly, and dropped it in the trash without a sound. During a night drill simulating combat, recruits set up a defensive perimeter under fake enemy fire flares lighting the sky, instructors barking conflicting orders. Sarah worked alone, securing a rope barrier with steady hands amid the chaos. Lucas Reed, a stocky recruit with a loud mouth, saw an easy target. He yanked her rope free, tossing it into the mud. "Oops," he said, grinning at his buddies. "Guess you're not cut out for this, huh?" The others laughed, their flashlights bobbing. Sarah knelt, picked up the rope, and started over, her knots precise despite the dirt. Lucas kicked mud onto her hands. "Keep trying, princess," he said. "Maybe you'll finish by dawn." The group roared, but Sarah paused and looked up, her voice low and sharp. "You done?" Lucas blinked, thrown by the quiet intensity in her eyes, but laughed it off and walked away. Sarah had her barrier secure in seconds. Later, Lucas found his own barrier loose, costing his squad points. No one saw Sarah near his section, but Mia, watching from the sidelines, allowed herself a small smile. That night in the barracks, Sarah sat on her bunk, pulling a worn photo from her bag. It showed a younger her next to a man in a black tactical jacket, his face blurred but his stance radiating danger. She traced her finger over it, her lips tightening, then tucked it away as footsteps approached. Ethan passed by, tossing his towel over his shoulder. "Sleep tight, Kane," he said, not looking at her. "Tomorrow's the range. Try not to embarrass yourself more." Sarah lay back, hands behind her head, staring at the ceiling, her eyes open long after lights out. The long-range shooting test was a make-or-break moment. 5 shots at 400 meters, all bullseyes, or you're out. The recruits buzzed with nerves, fiddling with scopes, whispering about wind and pressure. Chloe went first, missing 2 shots, her face ashen. Ethan hit 4, cursing his near miss. Then Sarah stepped up. She used a military spec scope with laser range finding, adjusting for a rifle with deliberately misaligned sights, a defect that would have ruined most shooters. She settled in, her movements almost mechanical. No scope tweaks, no wind checks, just aim, breathe, fire. 5 shots, 5 perfect hits. The range officer stared at the display, then at Sarah, then back. "Kane," he said, his voice carrying over the silent range. "Perfect score." A general with gray hair and a chest full of ribbons leaned forward from the sidelines. "Who trained her?" he murmured to his aide, his tone urgent. The aide shook his head. "No info, sir. But that's not civilian trigger control." Ethan scoffed loudly. "Lucky shots. Let's see her do something that matters." But during the equipment check, the range officer found the misaligned sight on Sarah's rifle, a flaw she'd compensated for with pure instinct. He muttered, "That's not luck. That's skill." The mess hall incident the next evening lit the fuse. Sarah was last in line, and the food ran out. She sat with an empty tray, sipping water, her face calm. A group led by Ava Bennett, tall and smug, saw their chance. Ava dropped a half-eaten apple onto Sarah's tray. "Can't have you starving, right?" she said, her voice dripping with pity. "Need strength to carry our bags." The table behind her laughed, phones out again. Sarah looked at the apple, then at Ava, her eyes steady. "Thanks," she said, taking a slow bite. Ava's smile faltered, expected tears or anger, not this unnerving calm. Sarah ate the entire apple, core and all, then stood to leave, brushing past Ava with just enough contact to make her step back. The mess hall went quiet, everyone watching this small woman who'd somehow stolen the room's attention without a word. The combat simulation the next morning was the breaking point. Hand-to-hand, one-on-one, no weapons, just skill. Fate paired Sarah against Ethan, 6 feet of muscle and ego. He towered over her, his fists clenched, a predatory grin spreading. Before the whistle, he charged, grabbing her collar and slamming her against the padded wall. Her shirt tore, revealing a tattoo, a black serpent coiled around a shattered skull, its fangs dripping venom. The yard went silent. Phone stopped recording. Ethan's grin faded as he stared at the mark. What the hell is that? Chloe's voice cracked, her confidence crumbling. General David Marshall, observing from across the yard, stepped forward, his face pale, hands trembling. Who gave you the right to wear that mark? He asked, his voice shaking with awe and fear. Sarah stood, her back straight despite Ethan's grip. I didn't ask for it, she said clearly. It was given to me by Shadow Serpent himself. I trained under him for 6 years. The words hit like a shockwave. Marshall froze, then snapped to a salute, his hand trembling. His aide whispered, Sir, what are you doing? Marshall held the salute. No one bears that mark unless they're his final student. His only student. Ethan stumbled back, his face drained. Chloe's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering on the concrete. The name Shadow Serpent was a mythic ghost unit. Missions that never happened, operatives erased from records. 5 years ago, they were declared dead in a Black Ops mission so secret it might have been a rumor. Marshall's reaction said the myth was real. Ethan's pride wouldn't let it go. Bullshit, he snarled, his voice desperate. I don't care what tattoo you've got. Prove it in a fight. Marshall warned. Son, I strongly advise, but Ethan cut him off. No, if she's so dangerous, let her show it. He raised his fists, circling Sarah like a wolf. She stood there, arms at her sides, looking almost bored. Ethan charged, throwing a wild haymaker. Sarah slipped it, letting it graze her ear. He swung again, left hook, right cross, a flurry of blows. But Sarah wasn't there. She moved like smoke, her footwork so subtle it seemed she hadn't moved at all. Hit me, Ethan roared, his swings growing sloppy, his breath ragged. Sarah studied him, waiting. When he overextended with another wild punch, she stepped inside his guard, her arms wrapping his neck in a fleeting embrace. 8 seconds later, Ethan's eyes rolled back, and he crumpled, unconscious from a perfect sleeper hold. The yard was silent except for the thud of his body. Major Cole stepped forward, his face unreadable. Effective immediately, he announced. Sarah Kane is an honorary instructor. You will learn from her, respect her, and follow her orders as you would mine. Sarah picked up her backpack, pulled her torn shirt closed, and walked to the barracks. The recruits parted like she was a live grenade, their earlier laughter gone. The fallout was swift. Word of Sarah's identity spread like wildfire, fueled by shaky cell phone videos. The next day's live-fire exercise gave her a team, including Chloe, who rolled her eyes but stayed silent. During the urban assault course, Chloe ignored Sarah's hand signals, rushing ahead and triggering an alarm. Cole stormed over. Kane, your team's a mess. Chloe smirked, whispering, told you she's useless. Tattoo doesn't make a leader. Sarah spoke calmly. Chloe broke formation. I signaled her to wait. Chloe lied. I didn't see any signal. The group snickered, falling back into old habits. But drone footage showed Chloe's defiance, her head turned away from Sarah's clear signals. Cole docked Chloe's squad 50 points and gave her latrine duty for a week. Her face went white as the laughter died. Cole himself changed. The man who dismissed Sarah now watched her with respect, asking her opinion during briefings, a first in his career. 2 days later, a nervous officer approached Sarah as she cleaned her gear. Ma'am, someone's here for you. At the gate. She followed him, the base buzzing with whispers. At the entrance stood a man in a black tactical jacket, his graying hair military short, his movements precise. General Marshall was there, standing at attention. Kane, he said, this is General Michael Vaughn. The man looked at Sarah, and her mask cracked recognition, maybe love, passing between them. You didn't have to come, she said softly. Vaughn's mouth quirked. Yeah, I did. Marshall cleared his throat. This is General Michael Vaughn, Sarah's husband. The words hit like a grenade. Chloe dropped her water bottle. Ryan's mouth fell open. Mia, who'd suspected Sarah's depth, looked stunned. Vaughn placed a hand on Sarah's shoulder, right over the serpent tattoo, and they walked to her truck. The engine roared, too powerful for its battered frame, and they drove off, dust swallowing them. Ethan, recovering in the medical bay, faced a review board and was discharged within days, his family name now a cautionary tale. Chloe's viral taunting video cost her sponsor, her social media accounts drowned in backlash. Ryan got every dirty job on base, his complaints met with reminders of his behavior. Cole underwent retraining, his demeanor softer, more thoughtful. Sarah's story became required reading for recruits, a lesson in humility. Training protocols changed, emphasizing respect. Mia, her kindness noted, was fast-tracked for advanced programs. 6 weeks later, at a review, a junior officer questioned Sarah's abrupt exit. Marshall slid a sealed envelope across the table, marked with a black serpent. Her evaluations from Shadow Serpent, he said. Read them. Then tell me about leadership. The officer paled, silent for the meeting. Sarah and Vaughn vanished. Rumors placed them at a black site in Nevada or a covert op in Eastern Europe. In the barracks, a recruit found her old photo her younger self beside the blurred man. It became a talisman, passed among recruits as a reminder, strength doesn't shout. The base became a pilgrimage site, visitors seeking the yard where Ethan fell, the mess hall where Sarah endured, the spot where Marshall saluted. Her tale spread online, hashtags like Hidden Blade trending for weeks. 9 months later, in May 2024, an encrypted phone rang in a secure cabin in Virginia. Sarah answered, her eyes sharper than ever. The voice said, "Code Raven." Her grip tightened. Raven was Shadow Serpent's final op, the one that supposedly killed him. "I thought Raven was dead," she said. "So did we," the voice replied. "But the target's alive. And he knows you're out there." Sarah glanced at Vaughn, reading reports by lamplight. He saw her face and knew their peace was over. "When?" she asked. 24 hours. Usual place. The line went dead. Another call followed, urgent. "Kane, this is Agent Emily Park, DI. 3 operatives vanished in Ukraine. Their last transmission, Serpent." Sarah's blood chilled. If Shadow Serpent was alive, her past was clawing back. She began preparing, pulling hidden weapons and IDs from their cabin. Vaughn watched her transform into the operative she'd tried to leave behind, her softness replaced by lethal steel. The cadets she'd left at Fort Bragg were graduating now, some learning her lesson, others still blind. But Sarah knew the real war was coming, a world where her ability to be invisible until the killing stroke was everything. As she packed, she thought of Mia, who'd see past appearances, and Chloe, who'd learned the hard way. New recruits would arrive, repeating the same mistakes until someone like her shattered their world again. In classified briefs, she'd be a high-value asset, but her real strength was knowing what it felt like to be dismissed. That knowledge was her blade, sharper than any weapon. Sarah looked out at the Virginia night, knowing it might be her last quiet moment. "The past never stays buried, does it?" she murmured. Vaughn took her hand. "No, but some ghosts need facing." As she stepped into the shadows, Sarah Kane, the woman who'd turned a training base upside down, became the weapon the world didn't see coming. In a world of loud threats, the quiet ones are the deadliest. So what do you think? Could you stay silent like Sarah, letting the world underestimate you until the perfect moment? Or would you have fought back from day one, proving your worth with fists and fire? And here's the real question. Is it justice when someone like Ethan or Chloe falls? Or is it just revenge dressed up pretty? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if Sarah's story lit a fire in you. And subscribe for more tales of hidden heroes who rewrite the rules. Who's the silent blade in your life?